Welcome to the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I'm Deborah Herlax-Enos, a small-town girl turned TV nutritionist and healthy living expert. I design health programs for the average guy or gal, including those average guys named Metallica. On September 1st, 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I asked every oncologist the same question, why did I get cancer? But none of my doctors had good answers for me. I wanted answers, and that's why I started this podcast. I want to help you to lower your cancer risk and provide self-care tips for those in the battle. I'm getting answers, and I want to share them with you. Well, I'm just going to start off by telling you today's episode is probably going to push some buttons for you because it pushed buttons for me. My conversation was with Nichole. She is an oncology dietitian. So she helps people prevent cancer by what they stick in their mouths. And if they're battling cancer, again, she talks about what you can eat and drink and so on to lower your risk and help you get through cancer treatment. Today's podcast discussed different things that contribute to cancer risk. Nichole has two big items that are really important to take a look at and probably cut out if you are concerned about cancer risk. Let's talk about alcohol. That's probably the biggest button pusher for most of my friends and family and community. You know, after work, maybe we want to have a glass of wine. We're going to go out and meet some friends. Alcohol is very tied to our social life in most cases. And for some of us, it's also tied to stress management. Nichole unpacks the most recent research and, in her opinion, why this is a link to higher risk of cancer and what it's doing in our body, and also some suggestions on what you can do, maybe a few too many cocktails each week. We talked about a lot of things, and I will also be really honest with you and tell you I didn't agree with everything. And that is the value of listening to this episode, is it's okay to have different opinions. Do your own research. Your health is your responsibility. Listen to podcasts, do your own research, talk to your healthcare community. It is really up to you for you to seek your own guidance when it comes to taking care of your health. So I know you're going to have probably a few questions after today's podcast. It's probably going to push some buttons. Hopefully it will challenge you, but there's already things I'm doing now to improve my health after having this interview with Nichole. So hope you give it a listen. I know you're going to be blessed by it. Nichole is joining me today on Why Did I Get Cancer? She is a oncology dietitian, and that's actually her handle on Instagram. Found her on Instagram, where most of my guests actually come from. And you publish some things that are really getting people stirred up. So I think we need to dive into the stir up. So welcome to Why Did I Get Cancer?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My handle, you can find me on Instagram. It's at oncology.nutrition.rd. So that's where you'll be able to find me. I'm also known as the Oncology Dietitian.
Yes. And that is really important during cancer, because when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, nobody talked to me about food. So, you know, I've got a lot of nutrition background. I'm a certified nutritionist. I have a degree in exercise physiology. Like I for the most part know what I'm doing. However, I still would have expected somebody on my oncology team to say, hey, you might want to take a look at some of these things if you're eating them. So let's just dive right in and talk to us a little bit about what a day in your life is like.
Yeah, sure. So I am a registered dietitian through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So I actually am credentialed, and then I also specialize within oncology. So I've worked in oncology in the nutrition field for over 15 years. I've worked in the hospitals. I've worked all over. But right now, what I've done in the last 5 years, I built my own private practice, kind of like what you had mentioned, Deborah, about how there's just not a lot of nutrition support in the hospitals, because I was there. I was one of those dietitians in and out. You know, you're expected to go to all the patients. There's a handout, and that's really it. And so, unfortunately, that didn't help. So I built my own practice, and now what I do is I work with cancer survivors during and after cancer treatment on how to eat really well to improve their treatment outcomes, to preserve their lean body mass, to remove all the fears around food, to have the facts. So I'm really all about the up-to-date evidence and facts on how to eat really well during and after cancer treatment, because it makes a huge difference to reduce risk of recurrence and also just have better treatment outcomes.
Yeah. And it's terrifying when I think about a recurrence. And again, as someone who's been in the nutrition and health field for 30 plus years, I already felt like I was doing all the right things. And then I get diagnosed with breast cancer. And then when I would talk to my oncology team, they would say things like, well, you've had breast cancer, or you have breast cancer, no more soy, but everything else is fine.
Yeah, well, that's not
So
true.
let's go ahead and jump on the soy train, because I know it's not true, but I was shocked that my oncology team at the hospital didn't know that wasn't true. So let's dive
Yeah,
in.
that's disappointing. There's a lot of good cancer centers, dietitians, and oncologists who do know that soy is safe, but unfortunately, not all of them, and they'll share things like that. So, soy is a plant. It's not going to be, it's not the human, right? It's not a human. So, estrogen hormones come from the human body, from your adrenal glands, your ovaries, and your fat tissue. You're not going to find any human hormones in soy, and it doesn't act like that. So where that myth comes from is that it has phytoestrogen, so plant estrogen, specific to soy, that plant. It does not act as human estrogen. It doesn't provide you with any estrogen. A lot of people are worried about having soy because they think it's going to give them these hormones, when we have to, simplify things and remember the chemical structure of phytoestrogen and human estrogen are not the same, and that this is a plant. And you're going to get estrogen, you're going to get human hormones from the human body, or prescription from your doctor, okay? You're not going to get it from soy. What's really cool is that soy is actually an amazing food. The American Institute for Cancer Research have recommended that anyone who wants to reduce risk of breast cancer specifically should consume more soy. It has isoflavones in there, antioxidants and phytochemicals that repair your damaged cell DNA, that help you reduce risk of cancer. There's fiber, there's iron, there's so many good things in soy. Right. You don't want to have a soy supplement, but besides that, really having any source of soy is actually recommended and will help you feel better. And it's also really high in protein.
Right. And so again, I was shocked when I was told everything is fine. Everything you could possibly get at the supermarket is fine except for soy. So then I had to just go back and do my own research, because of course, as a nutritionist, I had heard that years ago, but hadn't really paid much attention because I wasn't working in the cancer population. So I am happy to hear that even though I've had breast cancer, I can still add soy products to my diet, as long as they're in their natural form and I'm not taking it as a supplement.
Yeah, and if you see it in an ingredient in a food, it's still fine. That's still considered its natural form. You just don't want to go out and buy like some soy supplement. But soy-based protein powders, soy-based protein beverages, those are also going to be okay. Soy is really a great food. And yeah, it's just a huge misconception that it's giving you hormones, and it just is not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clearing that up. And and recently, our government has come out and talking about alcohol. And I would love to hear your thoughts on alcohol with cancer risk. It's such I'll also say alcohol is such an easy go-to for social reasons or for stress management. And
correct.
So let's tackle that one.
Yeah. So actually, the World Cancer Research Fund, American Institute for Cancer Research, who are really ahead of looking at what nutrition lifestyles impact cancer risk, have been talking about omitting alcohol completely for a long time now. So it's actually, I'm really glad that the government and the media is finally catching up, because this has been something I've been talking about for a while. So unfortunately, the recommendation a long time ago, like probably over a decade ago, was 1 a day for women, 2 a day for men, no more than that. Okay. Well, in the last decade, they had changed it to 0. So omit all alcohol. And every time I talk about this, it's people don't like it. People get triggered. Yep. They realize they are dependent. They want to do it for fun. Their friends, that's all they're going to do if they want to have friends. So it just triggers a lot of people, which is fine with me, because, hey, we're sharing the science. So it's so important that the people who really want to know what the facts are and really what they want to do to reduce risk of cancer, it's so important, and my passion to share what those facts are, even if it upsets other people, that's fine, And, hopefully some of my content will make people look inward, because I don't want anyone trying to cope with stress or have fun only using alcohol.
Right.
So what's happening is, I'm really glad that alcohol is now being put on blast, beyond, the researchers that have already been sharing this. So the ethanol within the alcohol, all types of alcohol, including like red wine, people will think red wine is good or gives you antioxidants. It does not. Right. It's not heart healthy. What it's doing.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, if you want resveratrol, you just go get some grapes. Okay, you don't drink wine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's simplify it.
Right. But people will use that as, an excuse because they are dependent or it's their routine or they feel lost without their alcohol.
Right.
And so the ethanol within the alcohol, it will end up damaging cell DNA. It blocks certain nutrients from being absorbed. So it actually increases risk of several different cancers: colon cancer, breast cancer, stomach cancer, liver cancer, mouth and throat cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So it increases risk of all those at any consumption, really any. And so a lot of people will feel bummed. They'll feel, oh, well, I like to have at least a glass a day. It's really recommended to not have any. And it's because of that ethanol.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I was on the board of directors for the American Heart Association in the area where I live. And I remember back then the guidelines were, again, drink the red. If you're going to drink alcohol, drink the red wine. And it's got resveratrol. It's very heart healthy. It's this, that, and the other thing. And I had a pretty big nutrition practice at the time. And I remember clients saying to me, well, I don't drink alcohol. Should I start? And I thought,
oh my gosh, that's
okay,
horrifying.
This is where marketing has gone so haywire that people actually are now questioning, I wonder if I should start drinking. Is that going to make me healthier? I know.
That's really sad.
It's tragic. Right. Right.
It really is. Yeah. And also not just cancer risk, but it doesn't help your skin. It can exacerbate anxiety and depression. It interrupts your sleep. You do not sleep well. There's a, myth of have some alcohol to sleep better. You're not going to sleep better. It's also putting strain on your organs, especially your liver, to process it out. Alcohol turns to acetaldehyde. So then what happens with that is now your liver is completely focused on processing that out. It's not focused on your carbs, your protein and fat. So alcohol really takes over the whole body, and it's just really best to get it out. That's really sad that they had said that, because that's just not the way of health at all.
It is not the way of health. And that is just such a, again, a ridiculous guidelines. Now, I will say this was 10 or 15 years ago, and I am thrilled that things are changing and people are paying more attention. But
me too.
I remember being so shocked when clients were asking me, gosh, I can't believe
I'm
feeling guilty that I'm not drinking alcohol. I thought, oh my God.
Yeah, and that couldn't be, they should be so proud that they're doing so much better than most people.
Right.
And they're like, the picture of health, and they're questioning it. It breaks my heart.
I know. And I mean, I tell you, the brainwashing we have done with the American public when it comes to health is just tragic.
Oh, it's awful. And it's never ending. It's never ending.
Know.
Right now, a big thing is the carnivore diet. People thinking they need to do the carnivore diet when really that's increasing your risk of cancer with all those meat consumption and low fiber. So it's hard for people who are looking for the facts and they can't find it because there's so much misinformation.
There's so much misinformation, and there's all these so-called experts on all the social media, and I'll just say it. Most of them are very charming. And they have a very compelling message. And, I'll see people, filming things at Costco or Trader Joe's, and they're talking about the convenience of this. Then you could just put this, container in the microwave and warm it up. Well, it's plastic. Are we still telling people to put plastic in a microwave? I mean,
yeah, you definitely want to. Yeah, microwaves are fine. They don't give you radiation, but yeah, using a glass container to warm up your food is going to be the best route.
Gosh, I know. Well, you mentioned, Nichole, about meats, and let's talk about one of the other foods on your list. I saw this on your Instagram a couple of days ago.
Good.
So I think you were talking about alcohol, and then the next one is processed meats.
Yes. So to clarify, everyone's telling you. So for the audience, you probably feel like everyone's telling you everything increases cancer risk, that you can't turn to drink or eat anything or do anything, all the foods, right? So my message is to bring, what we're doing here today is bringing the up-to-date facts that there's actually only 2 foods that will increase your cancer risk at any consumption. One is alcohol. We just went through that. And the other one is processed meats. So when you hear, well, hey, Nichole, what about plant oils and aspartame and diet sodas and gluten and dairy? That is not true. It's not true. And all foods are being studied all the time. The World Cancer Research Fund has what's called the Continuous Update Project. So they review literature and they review foods to make sure they're safe, red dyes included. That's, people are trying to put that on blast. These are all safe and well studied. It's not like people are trying to hide the evidence, like they're actually being studied. So the only 2 foods that do and will increase your cancer risk is alcohol, and the other one is processed meats. So processed meats are going to be things, those pre-cooked meats in the store, usually. Bacon is also also processed, even though it's not pre-cooked. Some people will get confused with that. But on the list is basically your pre-cooked sausages, your deli meats, your hot dogs, your bacon. Usually in the grocery store, at least here in the USA, there's going to be a section of the deli meats, and then there's going to be a section of the raw meats. Those raw meats that you have to take home and cook, those are fine. The mince meats, those are fine. Even the plant-based processed meats, those are fine because those are plants. Those aren't meats. So what's happening is when these meats, the processed meats, which are the pre-cooked ones, they're being heated up or having added preservatives, they give off carcinogenic byproducts. So they believe there's a few different reasons why these will increase risk of only colon cancer. So that's another important. So processed meat's not increasing your risk of any cancers but colon.
Huh,
all right.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's important to note too. So like for breast cancer, it's not going to increase your risk of breast cancer, but it will for colon. So the high heat they use, the smoking, the additives, and then how some of them are red meats may also increase your risk of cancer. But let me be clear. Red meats are okay up to 18 ounces or 500 grams per week. They're not going to increase your colon cancer risk till that level. Yeah. So it's really best to remove processed meats. A lot of people have a hard time with this because I get it. Turkey, it's convenient.
Factor. Yeah.
So, you just try rotisserie chicken is not a processed meat. It's a raw meat that's cooked in store. You could do something like that or cook your own meat, slice them up, have them ready to go. It's just really best when it comes to colon cancer to remove those. If you end up having some processed meats, just really tie it in with high fiber. A high fiber diet will also reduce your risk specifically of colon and breast cancer. So if you're someone who has the occasional processed meat, you're not taking it out yet, let's just really focus on adding in more fiber as that will help you.
Interesting. Especially, I'm assuming the link is, it's mainly a bump in colon cancer. So the fiber is helpful.
So it won't really necessarily offset it, because the risks are still going to be there of containing, those processed meats. But so to reduce risk of colon cancer, there's quite a bit of research and things to show of what you can do. One of those is removing alcohol, also removing processed meats, but also having a high fiber diet, 30 grams a day. Consuming dairy because of the calcium will help reduce your risk of colon cancer, exercising 150 minutes of moderate physical activity per week, and lowering your body fat tissue. So there's different things you can do to reduce your risk of colon cancer beyond just removing processed meats. But unfortunately, when you consume processed meats, there's those carcinogenic byproducts from heating and smoking it that will go through your system. So we just really want to, really try to completely omit them if we can.
Okay. That is really interesting because I do love me a nice charcuterie, and it sounds like I need to rethink maybe some of the items that I'm putting on there.
Yeah. And and I have a couple books out, and I do have charcuterie board recipes, but great. I hear that a lot, but you can do like the olives and the cheese and the crackers and the fruits, and you can do all those things. But I understand the meat's a big part of it. Remember, all the other meats are fine if you were to cook up some meats and add it to your board instead. I know it's not the same, but that would be okay. So processed meats are said to be taken out, but let's think about these other proteins and meats that are not chicken, fish, turkey, eggs, dairy, even some red meat up to 18 ounces a week. Those are okay. So we still do have a lot of options.
We do. Yeah. But the other thing we need to start doing is just doing things differently. It's, if your default is to stand in front of the deli counter and, I'm making kids lunches or I'm doing this and, I'm grabbing a bunch of, processed sliced turkey and processed sliced ham. It's going to be a little bit more work to actually just cook a turkey breast and slice it. But it sounds like the payoff is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it won't have all those high heat, you're the one controlling and cooking it in the oven. So it's not going to have those carcinogenic byproducts. Right. And rotisserie chicken is convenient. Baking a chicken, yes, it'll take you 30 minutes. But once you pop it in there, you can, set the timer and forget it. It is a couple extra steps, but it can be done. You can get in a good routine about it. And then you'll have that peace of mind, because remember, there's only 2 foods that increase your risk. It's just processed meats and alcohol. So all the other ones, let's enjoy those, and not think, oh gosh, my processed meats taken away. I always try to encourage people to remember, okay, it's just the processed meats and alcohol. We can have all these other foods.
I had a doctor years and years ago, and she told me if you're just drinking water to get hydrated, that is not enough. She said, you really need something to make the water stick in your cells. And I've been thinking about that for years, and I really haven't been able to find a product that I love. I mean, I think our most common one in our culture are things like Gatorade, and there's just so much junk in those products. There's the dyes, there's the sugars, and if it's sugar-free, then it's going to be sucralose or Splenda, which is basically the same thing. So I've been looking for a junk-free electrolyte replacement, and I have finally found one. This is a company that reached out to me. They're called Just Add Buoy, Buoy. Buoy is the product, and it's an electrolyte. What I love about it is it's flavorless. They're drops, so you just can put a couple of drops into your coffee or into a smoothie or, whatever it is you're drinking throughout the day. It's got B-complex vitamins. It's got 87 trace minerals, which is absolutely incredible. Antioxidants, which I love the combination of these items. But what I also really love is their no list. So there's no sugar, there's no fake sugar, there's no artificial flavors, colors, you name it. And again, I'm a big fan of this product. I'm kind of new to the Buoy family, but I'm really grateful that they have offered me 20% off to pass along to you. And these products can be very expensive. Yes, it's an investment, but I'm giving you 20% off. And what I love about Buoy is that their product, their label, it's a really clean label. So I'm really, really happy with it. And again, I have been searching for a really long time. So I hope you give Buoy a try. The link for the 20% off, it's in the show notes. And they have just been such a great customer service driven company. I had a few questions. I emailed them. I got a response right away. So Just Add Buoy, give it a try. Let me know what you think. Okay. So are you saying then that we can have sugar?
Yeah, you can have sugar. Yeah, absolutely.
Hold on, Nichole.
Yeah, you
So
can. You really can.
That's one of the things that I did hear from some different people on my oncology team is, no more sugar, because sugar feeds cancer.
Right. So you have to, it's hard because when you go to those appointments, if an oncologist or a nurse is sharing these things as misinformation, trying to talk with a dietitian, if your cancer center has it, they'll be able to straighten that out. So sugar feeds cancer is just a very long-standing myth, and it will always be there because technically cancer cells do uptake nutrients a lot quicker and faster and more than a regular cell. So you could argue that cancer cells do gobble up all the nutrition, including glucose. The important thing is carbs, sugar. Right. That's what glucose is. So basically, yes, cancer is going to uptake nutrients, but whether the cancer patient eats or not. So it's not going to slow down in its uptake of nutrients or in its preference or what it uses, which includes carbs, however they eat. So if a cancer survivor has cancer and they eat sugar, it will not, the cancer will not grow quicker. It will not feed it more. It's already got its steady stream of carbs that it needs for its own special, very weird and complex way of metabolizing nutrients. Cancer cell is just so different from a healthy cell. It's so different. And then same goes the other way. If you are a cancer survivor and you remove all sugar, or maybe you had cancer, now you remove all sugar, you're not going to it's not going to slow its growth. The cancer is going to be treated by your treatments from your doctor. Radiation, chemo, only surgery would be the best. And then after that, it's radiation, immunotherapy, chemotherapy, and then you have your hormone therapy too to keep, risk down. But sugar does not make your cancer grow or slow it down. The important thing is that yes, it does have a higher uptake of nutrients than glucose. We cannot control that with diet. So it's so important for cancer survivors to focus on eating to have better treatment outcomes, to nourish their healthy cells and their healthy organs. So it's just a huge misconception. Also, PET scans will really worry a lot of people. They'll be like, I got a PET scan and I had this IV glucose and it lit up. Okay, so the glucose isn't, first of all, it's writing on the FDG. So basically, it's the PET scans used as a marker to figure out where the cancer is it there? Is the treatment working? That metabolism of glucose isn't changed. You just have now this, this marker that it's going to track from the PET scan. So again, it's not changing the rate that cancer is uptaking glucose, and you just can't control that. But what we know and seen in studies, and we've seen it again and again, I've seen this with all my clients, is that when you have better nutrition, a better diet, not one high in sugar, but some sugar is fine. your healthy cells and healthy organs are going to be stronger. And when you're stronger, you're going to show up to treatments. You're going to have less missed doses. You're going to have less reduced doses, less severity of side effects, reduce brain fog, increase energy, preserve lean body mass. This is all evidence-based in what they show. So we want to eat really well and focus on the foods we're eating to have better treatment outcomes. And the occasional sugar, 200 to 300 calories a day is pretty typical for people to have like chips or candy or something. That's usually a pretty standard, hey, let's just put that aside. And then all your other food is your whole grains and your fresh meats and your fruits and your veggies and things like that. Then you're going to be fine. Just please know that the way you eat or did eat, it's not making your cancer grow or come back quicker. And I know that's the fear that so many survivors have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big fear. It's that the scan anxiety and the doctor appointment anxiety. And I mean, I get anxiety every time I go to the hospital. And I finally realized when I go for my surveillance, I finally realized I need to park in a whole different section, because as soon as I pull into the parking lot and I start parking in the same place as I parked when I was getting surgeries, or
that PTSD is real.
It really is real. It really is real. Yeah.
It is. It's so, I was talking to a client yesterday. She said it was a time of year. She's like, well, I was diagnosed this time last year. So now I feel like it's coming back when it's not. I mean, getting support through and after treatment, definitely not when the treatment's done, but way beyond that is so important, because cancer, it's a trauma.
It is a trauma. Yeah, it is a trauma. And I think, again, there's information, there's misinformation. And I think we can just get really overwhelmed. And so then in my case, I started just cutting everything out of my diet, and I got so skinny. And
now you're not strong for treatments.
Right.
Poor thing.
Right. And I know what I'm doing. Like, I have enough knowledge in this area.
Yeah.
That
it's different when it happens.
That is also really true. That is also really true.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give somebody today who maybe is just really recently diagnosed, or maybe they have a really strong genetic link to a certain type of cancer? What's one or two things they can do today to calm down, manage anxiety and manage stress over it?
Yeah. So you have to remember that there's certain people that are going to give you the facts, and there's certain people that are not. They're going to have their shiny marketing and their products and their supplements, and they're going to scare you. You should really find places like, go over to my Instagram, follow my Instagram. You need to find dietitians who are specialized in oncology and give you neutral facts. They're not really trying to persuade you either way. They're just sharing information. And then those sources are better. If someone's trying to scare you with information, they're probably lying. Okay. So that's the first thing. It is scary out there, but I know you can manage things by finding the right people to follow on social media. Then now, just from the science, let me just share with you some simple ways that you can work on, even whether during or after cancer treatment, or maybe you don't have never had cancer, but you want to reduce your risk. So the main few things that people can do is simple. Okay. And it's not going to feel really flashy. And I know sometimes people who are wanting to reduce risk of cancer, they want to do more. So they like buying the supplements, trying new diets. They feel like they're doing more and they're more successful. So I understand that part of like human psychology, but really you don't need more supplements or fat diets. You don't need that. So really what we need to be doing is, well, first off, removing the alcohol and processed meats. And for some people that may take some time on its own. So we work on that. Okay. All the other foods are fine. Okay. Then the next thing I want you to focus on is not taking supplements to reduce your cancer risk, unless your doctor's like prescribing you for a micronutrient deficiency, or you're elderly, or you need vitamin D, calcium. That's different. But I don't want you to seek out supplements to reduce cancer risk. High dose supplements become free radicals. So if there's like vitamin C, for example, over 200% daily value in the day, that becomes a free radical. Your cells don't want more vitamin C. You don't just pee it out. It really disrupts your cells. So don't seek out supplements. All right. The next thing you can do is incorporate more movement and exercise. When we sit less and move more, and then also exercise 150 minutes per week, you'll reduce your risk of cancer. And that right there is something pretty major most people can do. People, they'd rather, sometimes people feel like it's easier to follow a fad diet or a supplement than to do that exercise. So 150 minutes of exercise and just more movement in general will help. And then the other thing that's so helpful for you when it comes to food and nutrition is having more plant foods. You don't have to go vegan or vegetarian. You do not. Okay. That's a misconception as well, but more plant foods. So at each meal or snack, you're having fruits, veggies, whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, or legumes, with those meals that also have like, other foods as well. So people think, oh, I have to go vegan. And if I don't go vegan, forget it. I just won't even look at a plant food. No, let's simplify things. Like, can you have a piece of fruit today? A vegetable, maybe a couple tomorrow. Being really honest with yourself, a lot of people will go throughout the day and they won't even have maybe one or no servings of fruits and veggies.
So true. Yeah.
Right. And there's no shame there, but let's get aware.
Mm-hmm.
Stop looking for supplements, shiny supplements and fad diets, and let's just figure out, okay, do I even have fruit or veggies in my house? If I were to do that, which ones would I have? Doing that, and then working on trying to choose more whole grains. So a lot of people will do white rice, white pasta, white bread. If you can, converting those to whole grains as good as you can. And that's really where I'd start. There's so many other things you can also do. You can head over to my Instagram. I have my book, Sugar Does Not Feed Cancer, will give you more guidance on that. I would snag that, or you can DM me questions. But really starting with those are going to be the most impactful. Lowering your body fat tissue will help also. But from what I just talked about, will probably give you that anyway. So just really working on those plant foods and exercise is going to be like a perfect way to get started.
Yeah. And I love your emphasis on 150 minutes a week of exercise. And of course, you don't have to do an hour a day. You can do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at lunch, walk the dog after dinner. Because I don't want people to hear this and say, oh my gosh, 150 minutes a week. It's baby steps, and just start small, because that amount of exercise, it also moves your lymphatic fluid, which is super important. And it's going to help to manage your stress, because the more you're moving, just the more you're also creating endorphins, which is linked to serotonin, which is going to calm us down and help us to have more perspective on our lives.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Lower your stress. So then you're exercising more, lowering your stress, then maybe you won't reach for alcohol, to
Well,
manage
and that is a
stress.
really good point. And, I think, again, back to the alcohol, it's just such an easy default. You're on an airplane and it's free. Okay. Is it really free in the long run?
Yeah.
Not really.
I know,
You're going to
right?
be paying a
And
price.
baby steps.
Right. Baby
And baby
steps.
steps with that too.
Right.
Like maybe you're doing, a whole bottle of wine, or maybe you're doing 2, 3 drink, going down to 1 and working your way, just like what you said about the exercise.
Yeah.
If you're doing none, let's start with 20 minutes a week and then build and slower.
Right.
All of your cancer prevention goals are not going to happen this month. You need to give yourself, 6 to 12 months of really building out this new life.
That's good advice. Yeah. Because once people get overwhelmed, they just check out.
Quit.
So let's just, again, baby steps.
Yeah.
And my goal each day is I'm just going to try to be a little bit more focused today than I was yesterday. So yesterday I had one apple. Today I'm going to have an apple and a small green salad or whatever. Like just a little bit at a time goes a long way.
Little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And think about, okay, the way you've been trying to reduce cancer risk or eat, or reach your nutrition goals, has that been working? And for decades, it really may not. And you may be tired of trying all these new, trends and things like that. So taking these goals we talked about today and implementing them one at a time, getting good at it, and then moving on to the next one, that's a new way you can try to, improve your health. And it's the way that sticks.
Yeah.
So I think those small goals is just really perfect advice along with what we talked about.
Yeah, I agree. So,
Yeah.
well, Nichole, thank you so much for being on Why Did I Get Cancer? And you've got some really good, easy, doable tips.
Oh, yeah.
But I have to
welcome.
say, my big takeaway was on the soy and on the alcohol. Yeah, those are shocking to me. And it's information that really needs to get out. So again, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. I had so much fun. Thank you, Deborah.
It's that time of year. I love spring. I'm a gardener. So to me, it's renewal, it's growth, it's all of those things. But also, after growing up on a small farm, I have allergies and I'm so sad about it, but I've had them my whole life. And spring has been rough on me. And one of the things that makes it less rough is I stay inside more often, which I don't love. But I have an air purifier in my house. And when things get really bad, I'll go inside and just rest or work or whatever it is that I do inside the house when I can't be outside in my garden. So let me tell you about my favorite air purifier. It's the Air Doctor. And I use the Air Doctor 3500 and it is amazing. One of the things I love about it is it picks up 99.99% of junk in your air. It's got a HEPA filter, an ultra HEPA filter, which I love, but it also picks up mold spores and pollen and dust and microplastics. Y'all have heard me talk about microplastics so much. So here's the deal. Air Doctor has a great deal right now, and the 3500, which again, I mentioned that's my favorite one, it's $280 off. I don't know how long this is going to last, but this is one of those products you just want to have in your house for emergencies, meaning the emergencies of summer wildfires or, again, just getting too much pollen in your neighborhood. So go to the link in the bio. I've got all the information there. The discounts are already in there. Again, huge fan of Air Doctor. I have 2 of them in my home, and it just makes me feel more at peace knowing I've got such a great air filter. Here's one of the other things that I love about Air Doctor. When I'm cooking and maybe I'm not paying a whole lot of attention and things are starting to burn and there's kind of smoke coming off of my stovetop, the Air Doctor, when I have it on auto, it kicks into high gear. So it's got this automatic system that when the air starts to get a little bit, congested, polluted in your house, it kicks into high gear. The lights start flashing, and then eventually when it clears the air, it calms down. So I also love that. It can help to clean my house after a bad cooking evening. So anyway, enjoy your Air Doctor. Link in the bio or go to the show notes. Hey y'all, can you do me a favor today and go and leave a review of this podcast? I know that the more great reviews, wink, wink, emphasis on great, reviews that I get, along with more downloads and more subscribers, that pushes this podcast out to people who might normally not even find it. And the reason I started this podcast and my real heart for starting this podcast is that I needed this information. It wasn't available. And so I started a podcast so that I could be a blessing to others. So you're a blessing to me just by being here. And again, thank you for your support. Thank you for your positive reviews and all of the notes that you send me. And also just wanted to say, hey, keep in mind, I'm not a doctor. And if you need medical advice, please reach out to your team. That is going to be just the best source for you because they know you. So again, I hope you enjoy this podcast.